Hi there, Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au, continuing my series on what's happening with property prices around the country. And by that I mean what's really happening as opposed to the general mainstream national media portrayal of prices in decline everywhere. The latest figures from SQM Research, that's the company run by Louis Christopher, who's one of the most long-term and respected real estate researchers and analysts in Australia. And I do like getting his data every week on prices and rentals and vacancies. Very good source of information. Many of the data that's available on SQM Research is freely available, and I recommend it to property investors trying to find out what's going on, and based on statistics in various locations around Australia. His latest figures on prices, that they tend to paint a different scenario to the one portrayed by CoreLogic, which is the source for various reasons, most often quoted by mainstream media. They tend to be presented as the Bible on prices. Well, they're not. They're just one source, one snapshot, one scenario presented by one research entity using a particular methodology. SQM Research uses a different methodology, and they quite often come up with different results and contrasting figures. So the latest figures from SQM Research actually portray quite an optimistic and positive outlook for prices in our major cities for houses. According to the latest figures, we've got 3 cities where prices are clearly higher than 12 months ago, and they are Canberra, Hobart and Brisbane. Then we have 3 cities where prices are pretty much on the same level as they were 12 months ago. That's Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth. Perth being a recovering market, Melbourne being a market that's moderating, winding down from its previous boom, and Adelaide a market that, according to these figures, is just sort of holding the line at the moment. So that leaves us just 2 capital cities where prices are down compared to where they were 12 months ago. Darwin is one of those places. Still, that market is refusing to climb out of its recession. And Sydney, which SQM Research agrees with other sources that Sydney prices, generally speaking, that generalised approach of providing one figure for the entire massive city, which is a little bit unrealistic, but that's what they do. But they have Sydney down in annual terms by only 2.8%, which is much lower than the figure published by CoreLogic. And their figure for the national average, that's the one that's most often quoted by media. They quote the CoreLogic figure. The national average is a minus figure, so they say Australian property prices are falling, and they say Australian property prices have been falling for 12 months, according to the CoreLogic national average figure. Well, SQM national average figure is actually a positive figure. It's up 1.5% as the average across the nation. Not that that means anything, because it's a kind of a ludicrous proposition to present Australia as a single market when it's so big and has so many different scenarios playing out in different markets around the country. What these figures show is that in annual terms, the national average is up a little bit. Also, the rolling month average nationally is up, and week to week, which is also another crazy proposition as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, according to these figures, week to week, the national average is up quite a lot, in fact, according to these figures. Now, what we don't get from most of these research sources, CoreLogic, Domain, SQM Research, you name it, is we don't get much of a picture of what's going on in regional Australia, which is a shame, because right now the strongest markets in Australia are in the regions. And some of them are really strong markets. Some of them are locations where in annual terms prices are up 15%, 20%, 25%, in some cases 30% higher than 12 months ago. There's some absolutely booming markets out there in regional Australia, and they're not getting any airplay because, according to pretty much everyone who comments on property prices in Australia, or the media outlets, or the economists and others, regional Australia doesn't count. Well, I think it does. I was in Townsville yesterday speaking to a gathering of UDIA members in Townsville, talking about Townsville. Townsville is one of the markets which I think is going to show a very strong market over the next couple of years. It's got an infrastructure spend of more than $25 billion on its books, including some projects, big ones that are underway already and more to come. Sunshine Coast is in a similar position, and its prices in most of its suburbs are up in double digits over the last 12 months. Geelong, in Victoria, Newcastle and New South Wales, lots of regional markets are rising really strongly, but they're not getting any airplay in national media because they're deemed to be unimportant. It's all about Sydney and Melbourne, apparently. Well, again, the position with those major cities depends on whose figures you believe. The SQM Research figures have the Melbourne house prices week to week actually rising a little bit. Year on year, pretty much the same as they were at the same levels as 12 months ago. But if you actually segment the markets into individual sub-markets, what I've found is that the absolute top end of the Melbourne market is down, the middle market is holding the line on prices, and the outer areas, the cheaper areas, are actually still rising strongly. And these figures have Melbourne overall pretty much in line with where they were 12 months ago. So according to these figures, no longer rising, but certainly not falling dramatically. And also according to these figures, Sydney's down, but only marginally. So a different picture on prices to the one that's generally presented by media, and I'll keep doing it because I want good information to get out to you, the real estate consumers of Australia. That's it for now. Terry Ryder signing off. Let's do it again soon.